There is a lot of really cool stuff happening every day in the businesses. We celebrate the wins, and regardless of if it's landing a new $1 million customer or this small operational thing that's going to save us, $100 a month or something. Those are huge.
Revenue growth ultimately comes from individuals finding improvements for themselves and for their business.
1% better is a lot, but if it makes things 0.1% better, that, again, over time with that long-term lens, those things are game changers. Hopefully, once you have some say and some input and you have some ownership over what you're doing, you're going to enjoy it, and that's going to be a big help. Yeah. And if you're enjoying it, you're going to keep wanting to grow.
Welcome to another edition of Empowered Owners. I'm excited to be joined today by my colleague, Casey Grisez, who handles marketing, communications, and also does some finance and FP&A work for us at Empowered Ventures. Casey, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here, as always.
Yeah,
I think last we did one of these, just kind of a sort of an EV update kind of episode is about 6 or so months ago after the share price reveal and ESOP update. So I'm sure it's been a quiet 6 months, not a whole lot going on, right?
Not a lot going on in the world or in our companies. Been pretty slow and quiet these days. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're excited. Another one of these. We'll kind of flip the script. I think there's a few things to update on. At EV, like at the holdco specifically, in EV, like in our operating companies, I guess more broadly, and then zooming out even more, just a couple of interesting things to touch on in the employee ownership world. So we're excited to flip the script on you, a little bit, and ask you some of the questions.
Yeah, there's actually a lot to cover, which is exciting. So let's get to it.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll start off an EV, some personnel news, some updates there. What do you have to share?
Yeah, really excited. Our team continues to grow. We'll now be a team of 8 here shortly, and by the time this releases, it will be official. Publicly in the announced and stuff. So we have a new corporate development person joining us at the holding company level. His name's Aaron, and we're really excited about Aaron joining. And corporate development is a part of our business that we don't use that phrase all the time when we talk about it, but it's really kind of like the acquisitions and mergers and M&A efforts of what we do, which is a big part of what we do. And corporate development is, an area that we've been kind of tag teaming as a group. And no one person has been really focused on it for a little while. And we're really, really excited that Aaron's going to be, focused on that and, going to be kind of relieving some of us of some of the day-to-day work, but also, really broadening the scope of our efforts in that realm. So it's big news and exciting for all of us at the Holdco team.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, why now? It's obviously something that, pursuing acquisitions is something we've done. It's our model, right? So why now?
Yeah, great question. It's been there, right, as you said, since the beginning of kind of a core to what we do. And we feel like we're pretty good at it, still learning and growing in that area. But right now we're seeing a lot of potential to increase our efforts to find, go direct, to talk to business owners directly, build more relationships, and really build a pipeline of opportunities for the long term. So far, we've found success, with acquiring businesses, largely going through kind of the broker and the banker network, which means, companies that have decided to hire someone to facilitate the process of selling their business. And that's worked well for us, but we're excited for Aaron to build a lot of relationships directly with business owners so that over the long term, we're finding the absolute best, opportunities for EV. And also, we're increasingly interested in businesses that are related to the ones we already have. So maybe, finding more opportunities that could be combined with some of our current companies to make them stronger, make them bigger. So that's another area Aaron's going to be focused on as well.
Yeah. So this isn't on our little prep sheet here, but I'm curious to throw you a little bit of a curveball. So corp dev isn't, it's not unique to us. It's it's a very common role.
Yeah.
How would you see EV doing kind of corp dev like as a function differently?
Yeah. And it's kind of like everything we do, we really try to take a fresh look at it and not just kind of do it default to how everybody does it. There's best practices and stuff for sure that we'll adopt and continue to use. But I think our approach has been, and Aaron's going to, I think, really thrive in this way as well, is to really be relational, like super duper relational. In the world of corp dev, it can get a little bit technical and financy, so to speak, uber professional, which is not bad. It's fine to be professional. I think kind of feel like I've used the phrase an island of misfit toys a little bit about our team at the holding company. We're fun and different, people. We like to do things our way, and we feel like that resonates too with outsiders. Like when we talk to business owners, that we're just real people. We're not overly polished in some ways, and Aaron's gonna fit right in on that front, I think.
Yeah, he's polished, but I think
polished,
it's
and professional, but like he's a real human, and
well,
exactly.
And I think that's something we talk a lot about at the Hoco, and I think it's the way we think is long term over short term. So I would venture to guess that's how we'll view the corp dev function as well.
Absolutely, yeah, good point.
Yeah. Another shifting gears a little bit. Another announcement that just recently went out is EV has gone self-funded for healthcare.
Yeah.
So curious for you to dig in. What does that mean? And maybe more importantly, kind of day to day, year to year, what's that mean for EVers?
Yeah. It's exciting. This is a change we've been kind of anticipating and building towards for a few years. Going self-funded, what that means is we're no longer in the true insurance kind of sense of how healthcare typically works, where you just pay a premium as a business and as an employee, and that kind of caps your downside from a cost perspective, but also there's no benefit to you if you're more effective with your use of the product. So going self-funded means we are paying our own claims now. And that means we have the benefit if we do well, and also take on a little bit more risk. But it's capped. Our risk is still capped. There's definitely another layer of insurance in place that essentially prevents it from going out of control from a spend perspective. So that's kind of how the mechanics of it, but it creates a lot of benefits for us. By being in self-funded, we're just able to be more in the driver's seat. Ultimately, we can pick and choose our partners a little more carefully. Make sure ultimately we're delivering, best options to our employee owners, so they're truly empowered to have great care at reasonable cost. That's kind of the goal. It's definitely not just a cost management goal. It's really a holistic goal to try to make an impact in an area that's difficult for all Americans. Honestly, like healthcare is one of those runaway cost areas where there's a lot of challenges, and we can't fix all those challenges because we are we're part of the general environment and system as well. But this is one way we can really create the potential to influence our healthcare and the way we approach benefits long term. There will be a lot more on this topic coming, I know, in a future episode with Kim, our HR leader, and so she'll explain this a lot better than I can. But we just want to share that this is really exciting, and if anyone has any questions about it that they want to share that we might cover in the episode with Kim, we would love to hear those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to us, and we can make that almost an AMA style too, where
we
collect some questions, and we'd love what are people curious about.
Yep, absolutely.
But I do think what's interesting to me is how much this feels like it aligns with kind of our broader, ownership mentality that we talk a lot about. That in day-to-day roles, I mean, it's part of employee ownership, right? It's taking ownership over what you're doing day to day, voicing opinions, voicing ways to make things better, and for this to be something that we as an organization, and then we're asking, I think, EV as individuals to really take ownership of their health. It seems like a really, versus the other model was, we'll join, we'll pay in, and kind of whatever happens. This feels like it aligns better.
Absolutely. Totally agree. It's another step in our, the way we, support our employee owners to, hopefully, feel better and stronger and more informed and have better outcomes in their personal health journey as well.
Yeah. This feels like it's unintentionally turning into the theme of the episode, but it's a long-term play, right? I don't think we're expecting anything, overnight, any changes, but this could be a long-term, the savings could be long-term, the mindset shift could be long-term. I mean, there's just a lot baked in that it's with that long-term lens.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, I guess we'll shift gears once again, financially. So we're 3/4 through the year, almost to the end of fiscal year 2026. How are we looking? How's the year looking so far?
Yeah, and a reminder to everyone, March is the end of our fiscal year. So when we say fiscal 26, we mean March. We're having a solid year. Revenue is actually pretty good so far. 10 months out in at this point. I think we could finish close to our budget on revenue, which is awesome. Really great. Yeah. Bottom line profitability is solid, but we're looking probably at falling a little short of our budget. Again, solidly profitable, which is great. There's cost pressures and other things that all of our companies are dealing with, and some market challenges, and really proud of our businesses for persevering and dealing with those and doing their best to manage those. So we're not the only ones kind of having this story. We hear through our networks and stuff that, the past 12 to 18 months have continued to be challenging, from managing costs and, inflation and all those types of things. The tariffs that happened last year, certainly had an impact on our businesses in different ways. So really proud of our team for just continuing to chop wood, so to speak, and drive performance, but profits aren't going to quite get to budget unless we just have a blowout last couple months here, which you never know. But so hope everyone just keeps pushing through the end of the fiscal year. But just so everyone knows, we're having a really solid year.
Yeah, I just mentioned a couple of them, but just curious just to talk about it, because I'm sure EVers are going to listen to this, kind of a feel for their businesses, what the what pressures are that they're facing. I mean, I guess any more thoughts on, I guess whether specifically to one or two opcos that what they're facing, or more broadly. I mean, as you mentioned tariffs, you mentioned interest rates, inflation, those kinds of things.
And you're hitting on the main ones. Yeah. And, there's some more market specific things that each of our businesses deal with. One of our businesses is heavy in RV and marine, and that's continued to still be a little bit slower the last couple of years. But they actually have, that business is actually performing quite well from a revenue perspective. But tariffs and interest rates and stuff is definitely having an impact on profitability across the board, I would say. And one way that manifests is just the ultra competitive, environment. Competition in all of our businesses is very high. Pricing pressures are there to kind of just to compete and maintain business. So it's typical business challenge stuff. Honestly, it's nothing special or unique to us. But it's definitely been felt this year, those pressures.
So what I'm hearing is it'll be a good thing if everyone listening to this goes out and buys an RV. Is that the solution?
I know.
Okay, so what are your thoughts? So going forward, and again, I think through this lens of what kind of the ownership mindset, what we can control, long-term lens, what kind of things should we, and I mean, as the collective, we, kind of all EVers, what should we be thinking about how to help,
Yeah.
our individual opcos and then EV as a whole, especially when we're thinking financially.
Yeah. I mean, I think and we'll talk more about this later, but just that ownership mindset of viewing your day-to-day work as essential, to the performance of the business because it is, and finding any and every small improvement, big improvement are great too, but small improvements to how we work and finding ways to save a little bit here or there is definitely important. The other big one that everyone has a role in, even if it doesn't feel directly like you do all the time, but growth. That's the name of the game for us at this point. Growing our businesses from a revenue perspective, adding new customers, supporting our existing customers, and adding more share with our existing customers. Just really everyone rowing in that direction and seeking for us to grow revenue in our businesses is going to be the number one way that we can actually, increase profits and ultimately increase share price by creating value, for all of our businesses. So just would encourage everyone to view themselves as part of our sales and our customer service teams, because ultimately that's the customers, is how we're going to servicing our customers well and adding new customers is how we're going to see, outsized success going forward.
Yeah. And you mentioned a couple there of kind of the sales staff, customer support. I also think about it if you're, out on the floor, what can you do that your work is quicker, is better, is, and again, I think a lot of it comes down to that ownership mindset, I guess. And anything else in your mind, for someone who's sitting there thinking like, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm not sales, I'm not customer service. How can I influence growth? I mean, you have any thoughts there?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, finding the improvements and stuff here and there, but fundamentally everyone being reliable and consistent in their role. So, if the goal is to 100, parts output on a particular day, hitting that 100 parts so that the business knows, like when we make a commitment to a customer, we know we're going to be able to fulfill that commitment. That's the secret sauce of growing companies is they can make promises, to new customers and existing customers because they know operationally we're able to reliably fulfill those promises. The worst thing, to do when trying to grow is to make promises that you can't fulfill, because now you've harmed your brand, so to speak, with customers. And so everybody is so essential to that reliability. Being a reliable business is ultimately what customers count on, when it comes to, giving us more opportunities and more work.
Yeah. It sounds like I can't remember if it was Bill Belichick or Nick Saban. It was one of those wildly successful football coaches that their big thing. I think it was Nick Saban, but the big thing was do your job.
Yep.
And you think about that in a team, right? The quarterback and the receivers and those scoring the points get the attention, but you have breakdowns on special teams, you have breakdowns in the lines. The people that we really usually don't know their names watching we just came off the Super Bowl about a week ago. That not many people are going to know the offensive linemen for either of the teams. But without them doing their jobs, the team's not going to succeed.
Yeah. I love the phrase, be a star in your role. Every single role someone can be a star in that role. And if everybody is a star in their role, that's like the ultimate high performing team. So, and I think we're lucky. We have so many people who already feel this way about the work they do. It's fundamental to what has made us who we are as an enterprise. And so it's just encouraging everyone to continue to have that mindset. And it's a contagious mindset too. If 5 out of 6 people have that mindset on a team, that 6th person's eventually going to kind of come around as well. So it's fun. It's fun to be part of a group where people take this kind of thinking seriously.
Yeah. And it's, I think The hard part is going talking to those in the opcos and seeing the great work that they do, and it's like, well, so I'm just doing my job. You know what? It's nothing special.
Right. They don't think they're doing anything special.
Yeah, but it is really cool to see. There are so many of those star players,
100%
stars in their roles. Again, they might not be getting the headlines, but stars in what they do. That they're a huge part of the engine. Huge.
Yeah, along those lines, and this is, I know, skipping ahead a little in our planned format here on our notes, but we're really, really hoping going forward to highlight more of those kind of things. And I know that's a big part of what you think about day to day, Casey. We talk about ownership in action, and this is what we're talking about: is like when people are kind of exhibiting this kind of star in the role mentality and going above and beyond, but not necessarily in a way that's has to be spectacular. It's really fun to highlight those stories of someone being a star in their role. So is that something you want to? How do you think about that, and what do you want to see and hear from people on things like that?
Yes.
All right. All of it. You would like to hear more. Yeah.
I think I'm not really too particular at this point. Again, I think it's a matter of, someone went the extra mile and whatever, sent something to a customer, sent whatever, a card or flowers or something for,
right.
Those little things. It's and I know we have a few stories of them, but the operational improvements, either in the warehouse or on the production floor, at any time, I think, again, we've talked about it in the newsletter and we've talked about it in other places, but aha moments, right? Those little, those seemingly small things that when you're working on it, it's like, this just made my day, my job, this process, that product, it made it better. And it could be, you hear a lot about, get 1% better. Why? 1% better is a lot. But if it makes things 0.1% better, that, again, over time with that long-term lens, those things are game changers.
Yeah, it really adds up.
So to talk about those, as the marketing guy, I don't need to be the one. I would love to hear more of them, but even if you just start talking about it in your business, and talking to the people around you, that's a huge first step. I think just to get this culture of we celebrate the wins, and regardless of if it's landing a new $1 million customer or this small operational thing that's going to save us, $100 a month or something, or make a process easier or save someone's back a little bit. Those are huge.
Yeah. I love it. The aha moment is really what we'd love for people to just be on the lookout for. That's the exciting thing to celebrate. Absolutely.
Yeah, we've talked about it internally. I think it's one of those, you get a new car. That's all you see is that car driving around. I think it's the same thing with those aha moments. As we start talking about them more and celebrating them more, I think a lot of people are going to start realizing, there is a lot of really cool stuff happening every day.
Yeah,
in the businesses.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, actually, perfect segue here. Just talking about, some wins across the organization. I think, again, we've joked up front that it's been a quiet 6 months. It has absolutely not been a quiet 6 months. There's been a lot going on. So I'd love for you to kind of walk through some of these wins.
Yeah, in a real quick hitter sense, there's so many wins in our companies that we could celebrate and mention. So many we don't even probably know about as well. But just kind of one or two per company we thought we'd highlight. So Whitney Brothers, our most recent acquisition, recently celebrated their 1 year anniversary with EV. And just generally, it's been really fun to see, people embracing and come, the ownership mindset is already very clearly taking root there. The excitement, I think. So that's been really awesome to see. TVF, our first business that really, is the keystone of what has turned into Empowered Ventures. Recently has had just a really impressive and exciting streak from a hiring perspective, bringing in people with great expertise and experience. And TVF's always been, great at kind of always having new people and kind of having a great balance between new and experience. And that's continued, especially with this really recent strong streak that's been especially focused on supply chain. So really want to celebrate that and welcome all those new people to TVF. Paramount, our business in the RV and marine space, as well as specialty vehicles, it has launched a really awesome new website, and would encourage everyone to go check it out. Yeah, paramountplastics.com. Really great. It really showcases the work they do. There's some videos of the actual, vacuum thermoforming process that they use, and it's just neat to everyone can really see like the actual product right there on the front page. So it's awesome, and kudos to them for that. Benor, our plumbing HVAC business, has done a great job hiring as well over the last 12 months. Finding people is always one of the biggest challenges for any business, and especially in the plumbing HVAC space generally. That's a very tough, very competitive. Benor's done a great job, and recently done a great job adding in their custom sheet metal kind of fabrication component of their business. So that's really exciting potential for them, what they've added there. First Star has really been focused on adding new customers and growth, like a lot of our companies are, but they've really doubled down on that effort in the last year with some account-based marketing efforts, which is a really great technique for trying to add new customers. And in particular, they've made some inroads with one or two really good potential customers in a key industry kind of space that they've wanted to grow in. So that's been awesome to see. And so, yeah, that's just a real quick hitter of a few things we want to celebrate. It doesn't, mention at all the kind of day-to-day, smaller wins that you and I were talking about before, but these are more headline things that I think are awesome and worth celebrating.
Yeah. And quick plug that a lot of these are in the monthly newsletter, whether it's the one we send internally to EVers, or we have one that we send out externally. Then we also post to LinkedIn. So it's been really fun, and some months challenging to keep up with. And how do you keep the newsletter brief and readable when there's so much going on at the OpCo? So, but I'd say it's a great challenge, and I'd love it to be more of a challenge. So again, as we're going through kind of day to day, love to hear more. Love the OpCos to talk about it more, and really share. Is it all of the headline or not? All of the great things going on. So, and I think a lot of these, and we've talked in the past, is ownership and action. Ownership mentality, kind of touched on a little bit earlier. But a lot of these fit into that. And, so I guess I'd be curious to one, redefine. I think we talked about, and potentially maybe the last time we did this, when you kind of first, introduced the ownership and action framework. So maybe just to give it a quick redefinition, but then just give your thoughts on what these mindsets are and how you see them playing out.
Yeah, thanks. And it's just maybe as a quick refresher and reminder for folks, because like you said, we've started talking about it this way over the last half year or so, but it's really like back to your point about, once you have a certain car, like you start to see that car everywhere. This is our attempt to say, what does ownership in action look like? What is it when folks have that ownership mentality? What are the few kind of patterns to that? And what we've landed on at this point is that there's kind of four particular mindsets: growth mindset, innovation and improvement, a service mentality or mindset, and enjoyment. And I think, growth meaning, let's start going through them really quickly. Growth to me is like a personal growth mentality. I think we see in our businesses and in our team at the Holdco just a desire to improve, like personal improvement, but also that translates to business growth. As individuals grow, businesses can grow. And that's something I think gets lost sometimes, is that revenue growth ultimately comes from individuals finding improvements for themselves and for their business. So just really believing in personal growth as a mindset is a key thing that we're excited to celebrate from an ownership and action perspective. Related to that is the innovation and improvement that the business itself can ultimately have. And so, whether it's a new product, a whole new, market to tackle, that like, hey, wow, we could actually service that market because of the skill set we've developed. and any number of other things that could fall under that innovation and improvement mindset. That's key. Service, I think, is super powerful from an ownership mentality perspective. Bringing a sense of customer service to your work, even if you aren't directly interacting with customers, because we all have somebody we're in service of. For a lot of our team members, the people we serve are others in our organization, and how well we do our work enables them to do their work better. So viewing your role as customer service, no matter what you're doing, is actually a really powerful way to kind of embody what it means to be an employee owner. And then the last one, which I think is just as important as the rest, is enjoyment. And it doesn't mean every moment you love the work you're doing. Like, we all have some amount of monotony and tediousness in our work. That's why it's called work and not fun. But finding your way to generally enjoying what you're doing, taking pride in it, recognizing the importance of it, and bringing the spirit of enjoyment to it, can really uplift the culture and the experience that you and your fellow employee owners have. I think it's just obviously more fun to go to work when everybody's smiling and finding the enjoyment in it versus just completely stuck in kind of a drudgery mindset. And that's really a choice. And I know that doesn't always feel like a choice, but I do think when we see the people who most embody ownership mindset, inevitably they're smiling and laughing at work. And I think that's a really powerful thing to note. And it doesn't mean if you're not enjoying that I think there's it's a question to ask, like what could need to change for me to kind of find this mindset. And it's not, I think that's just it's a really powerful thing to ask yourself, and something we want to encourage our team members to support each other in.
Yeah. Well, and I think, if we're enjoyment, that not every day, you're not going to be smiling and happy every day, but I think it's the on net thing, right? Like, you do the Sunday scaries and dreading going to work and that kind of stuff. That's the type of stuff, that again, on net, do you enjoy what you do? Do you enjoy the people that you're with? But I also think what's powerful, I think, about this framework or these mindsets, and I know we at EV love a good visual, love a good way of representing this, but I think when you have a growth mindset, it leads you to want to be innovative and improve things. Then I think there's once you've had an input into something, I think you then want to serve it and serve others and help others. If it's a new process, other people are most likely going to be involved in that process. And then if hopefully once you have some say and some input and you have some ownership over what you're doing, you're going to enjoy it, and that's going to be a big help. Yeah. If you're enjoying it, you're going to keep wanting to grow.
Wow. So there's well said, Casey. That's a nice little spiral pattern you've identified there.
We should put it on paper.
No, it's so true. And that's really well said, Casey. Along those lines, something just came to mind for me that has helped me in my personal life, and I think very much relates to all this, which is, if you want to be happy, make another person happy. It doesn't mean ignore your own needs and wants and stuff, but it actually is the most enjoyable thing possible to do something that makes someone else happy or feel good. So that gets to that service to enjoyment kind of part of it too. And it's just more fun when everybody kind of brings these attitudes to work ultimately. Yeah. I agree completely. And I think we have a recent example of the service mindset and helping. So why don't you talk us through that? Yeah, I think just one example of what's been, of this combination of these mindsets is our Whitney Brothers folks. Like a lot of companies have had to take a look at IT and like, okay, how do we take our IT infrastructure to the next level in the modern era, so to speak. And Scott, the president at Whitney Brothers, ended up, reaching out to TVF's IT team, Ben Jones and Lisa Pratt in particular, and they recently supported Whitney Brothers, Scott, and the management team through a significant transformation, of the IT infrastructure. and it was a lot of work. Ben and Lisa went kind of above and beyond, the call of duty, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And did so with all these mindsets, like such a service mentality. You could tell they really wanted to make an impact for Whitney Brothers, weren't resenting at all that this sister company, cousin company wanted some help. They love doing it for Whitney Brothers, and Scott's been super grateful, expressed that so clearly, and it's just been neat for me and us at the Holdco level to kind of see it happen. We didn't have to, even encourage too strongly for this to take place. It was all we did was kind of make the connection, and then it was all of them kind of just leaning in and doing the work, and just really neat to see. So just want to call that out as one example of one, these ownership and action mindsets. Two, the power of being part of a holdco with resources and being able to lean on each other. It's been a really awesome thing to see.
Yeah, and I think it's the beauty of the holdco structure too, right? Where you have these related but not overlapping businesses, and again, it's one of, and I can't think of others off the top of my head, but one of other examples where they help each other out. And in many, if not all cases, it's not like, to your point, we're not forcing anything, we're not pushing anyone on anybody, but it's, hey, if they can help each other, you might as well.
We've actually seen it a lot, all of our companies kind of leaning on each other, getting advice, getting support. We have an example coming up soon, which is our EO Summit, where our employee ownership committees come together, encourage each other, share annual plans with each other. Super powerful, meeting that all of our companies have every year with us. And yeah, it's just really fun to feel that, to see and feel that support, that supportive sense that crosses through these companies, even though they're independently managed, as you mentioned. So it's a neat part of our model for sure.
Yeah, small business is hard. So if you can have others you're working with, it makes it that little bit easier.
Absolutely.
So I think shifting gears quickly to zooming out a little bit, and we talked before we hit record that neither of us are super well read on any of this. We're not subject matter experts on ESOP policy necessarily, but just some things that have happened recently that I think, I think part of how we both view what we do and what EV does is kind of raising the profile of employee ownership more broadly. So I think these handful of things are worth mentioning. So I may just run through them if you're good with that.
That'd be great.
So I think one, the Secretary of Labor, who is very pro-ESOP, was confirmed with a 67-32 bipartisan support, which this may come as a shock to a lot of people listening, but we're in a bit of a politically charged environment now. So to see, I think to see any secretary of anything confirmed 67-32 is a really cool sign of support for, and for it to have someone in there who is so supportive of ESOPs. Kind of on a related note, there's federal legislation advancing, including one bill that actually creates in the Department of Labor an office and advocate for employee ownership. So again, kind of at that federal level, which is an important piece of employee ownership, right there. There's some federal, so federal support for that is nothing but good for kind of employee ownership as a whole. Zooming in a little bit, I thought this one was really cool. So Oregon is creating procurement preferences where state agencies can give preference to employee-owned companies. So those companies, and this gets down to bidding and state financing projects and that whole world that is terrifying and fortunately foreign to me. But I don't know, in a lot of cases, it comes down to who's the lowest bidder. But in Oregon, it's now employee-owned companies can win state contracts even if they're 5% higher than the competition, and it's up to 10% for in-state production.
Wow!
So if you're an in-state business in Oregon, you can still win state contracts even if. So I would imagine there are probably national and international competitors coming in for some of these contracts that in the past they may have won them, but now to support employee owners and employee ownership, So Oregon's passed this that you can still win these state
Amazing.
contracts, which I think is really cool. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're starting to see, activism not just at the federal level and movement not just at the federal level, but also at states. And there are other states. I think California is one of them. Maybe Colorado. There are a few other states that are looking at very similar bills.
Really
that I
cool.
think if you can kind of get this preferential treatment for employee-owned companies, that's only a good thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think it's just feels like this momentum is building. And I know I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but that the number of ESOPs has been fairly stable in the U.S. for a number of years. So I'm hoping that these types of support from a government perspective is going to help grow that. Now it's partially on us in the EO world to expand awareness. But when there's also those incentives in place, that's only helpful. So it's kind of that feeling of we're part of something bigger, and that's all the opcos, us, the holdco. There's something bigger happening here, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's really well said. And that's I think 2 takeaways for me that I would hope our folks, our EVers would know is, one, there is a positive momentum politically, going on for employee ownership. So, it's one of the few things that consistently has true bipartisan support. And that's a really good thing. There could be a point at some point in the future, and we've done this in the past, where we're actually asking our employee owners to write letters and send stuff to senators and representatives. We don't do that very much, but if there's ever like a really consequential piece of legislation that's related to employee ownership, they may hear from us and say, hey, here's how you do it. And here's what we would encourage you to say, because having that support does really make a difference. For folks that don't know, we're an S Corp ESOP, which means we are deferred from an income tax perspective. Very technical, financy thing, but we don't pay federal income taxes as a business. It's deferred until ultimately when people take their distributions and end up taking it out of a tax advantaged account. That's when the taxes get paid, and that's a huge advantage to us as a business and helps us create the compound effects of wealth in our share price and stuff. So it's a big deal. And so it's good that we have this support. And yeah, to your point, I think, that they just know that, that like the employee ownership thing is supported by all these different states, and that there's this effort to make sure that employee ownership isn't disadvantaged in like procurement and stuff. That's also happening as well. So it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's cool to be a part of. And I think, kudos, and I don't want to list them out off the top of my head because I'm sure I'll forget some, but there are multiple national organizations that, they're there for the advocacy and the lobbying, to raise awareness to push for policy that is, pro-ESOP. So I think, giving lots of kudos to all of them.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, I think we're at the end of our official list of things to cover, and we're only 44 minutes in. So nice brief episode for everybody. But this is fun, and it's always really cool. Because there's even a small team, I don't always know everything happening everywhere, and there are things you don't know. I mean, so it's just cool to catch up and hear kind of in one block, what 6 months or more of head down work, what else is going on around us. So this is fun.
Yeah, really grateful for everyone for tuning in. Grateful for everyone's hard work and dedication to what they're doing. If there's one thing I would ask of everybody is if you find our podcast useful and interesting, I would encourage you to mention it to other EVers. This is one of our favorite ways, honestly, to kind of stay connected with everybody. And it would be great if more of our EVers would tune in. YouTube and any podcast, player of their choice, it's available there. So for a lot of folks that may not know, that YouTube is like an easy way to kind of follow along and watch and listen to these. So really would encourage those who are already enjoying this or getting anything out of it to just mention it to others. It would be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not offended if you listen while you're like doing the dishes or driving home or something.
That's actually great. It's preferential. We'd love to just be in your ear while you're doing something, being productive at home. That'd be amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Casey. Grateful to you for all your hard work on all these efforts to get share our story. And thanks for coming on this episode of Empowered Owners.
Always happy to, Chris. It was fun.